This, by the way, what's astounding is it's sounding more and more like cult-like almost, and it's really sad to find out so many times that like these huge artists, whether it be like Marilyn Manson, you know, R. Kelly was doing the same thing as well. They seem to have this kind of strange, abusive cult-like personality where they, I guess, think of themselves as gods because they become musical gods on Earth. Let's look at this Rolling Stones story. I mean, hey, this one brings me absolutely no joy to report. I was not like a Marilyn Manson head. I don't know what you called yourself if you were like a big Marilyn Manson person. But in high school, I thought Marilyn Manson was cool, especially because after all that kerfuffle about video game violence, games that I was really into like Mortal Kombat and Doom, not Night Trap because I couldn't afford a Sega CD, but still Mortal Kombat and Doom. I loved those games. And they were like, well, those games are going to turn you into a violent killer. And I was like, that's not true because I play those games all the time. So much that I kind of don't have time to have a social life or meet girls or have fun. But I'm certainly not violent. I know that. So you're lying to me. You're lying because I've never had a session of Doom where I left it thinking I want to go hurt people. I would usually think that I got to get better at this game and I may, okay, well there may have been some violence. I may have smashed a keyboard because I was frustrated, but that's it. Okay, that's all. But anyways, they said the same thing about Marilyn Manson. They said Marilyn Manson was the cause of Columbine shooters and inspirational to school shooters everywhere, and that just because they would listen to Marilyn Manson albums or stuff like that. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the reason. It was this weird correlation that they were making in the 90s, trying to find out where violence, hatred, all that stuff was coming from, and it must be coming from the source. It must be coming from culture. That's that idea, right? It was the hip hop, all right? Your Snoop Dogg's, your Dr. Dre's. They're ruining everything, and I guess if you want to get into that whole East Coast West Coast thing, your Biggie Smalls too. Every single one of them was going to destroy society, and then Marilyn Manson was right there in the middle of all of it. Marilyn Manson's record label Loma Vista Recordings has split with the musician after several women, including Evan Rachel Wood, accused him of abuse. In a statement, Loma Vista wrote, "In light of today's disturbing allegations by Evan Rachel Wood and other women naming Marilyn Manson as their abuser, Loma Vista will cease to further promote his current album effective immediately due to these concerning developments. We've also decided not to work with Marilyn Manson on any future projects." Manson began working with the Loma Vista for his 2015 record, The Pale Emperor, inking a deal that would be allowed the musician to retain the rights to his music while Loma Vista would distribute it. The arrangement remains similar to Manson's next two albums, 2017's Heaven Upside Down and last year's We Are Chaos. Wow, I'm so out of the times when it comes to Marilyn Manson albums, with Manson retaining the copyright while granting Loma Vista the exclusive license. A representative for Manson did not immediately return Rolling Stone's request for comment. Loma Vista's decision to drop Manson came hours after Wood released her statement on Instagram Monday morning. All right, let's check out the post. "The name of my abuser is Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson. He started grooming me when I was a teenager and horrifically abused me for years. I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. I am done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail. I am here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent." Wow, powerful stuff.
My story was powerful enough, and I thought that my voice could be loud enough that it could actually be heard.
How does one know that one's story is powerful?
Everyone's story is powerful. Every survivor story is powerful.
Actress Evan Rachel Wood is known for movies like 13.
We jacked it, okay?
The Wrestler, Eyes of March.
Oh, wow. I really like 13. I totally forgot. That's wild.
Also TV shows like True Blood.
You better not.
And Westworld.
I already have that.
But now Wood is stepping into a new role, one that is deeply personal.
I found myself a victim of domestic violence when I was very young, and it took me a lot of time to even come to terms with that, or to even call it domestic violence, to even admit to myself that that's what it was. Through that experience, I realized that there were still a lot of injustices.
Over the past few years, she shared her story on social media.
I don't remember what it feels like to not be scared.
and as an advocate.
I thought I was the only human who experienced this.
In April,
So, by the way, this is an old report, and I hadn't seen it, but I wanted to play it because I know she's been an advocate for domestic abuse for a very long time. We just didn't know who her domestic abuser was all this time. But I remember seeing like Evan Rachel Wood, like this is from May 15th, 2019. So this is basically all her activism, but still she never names her abuser.
Wood spoke in front of the California Senate.
When I was a teenager, I met a man. I looked up to him in many ways and felt like we had a special bond.
Her testimony is part of the Phoenix Act, a bill she wrote asking to extend the statute of limitations in California from 3 years to 10 years for survivors of domestic violence.
By the time I realized I was in a bad situation, I felt completely trapped and terrified for my life.
And I watched you testify, and you talked about the importance of time to a survivor. When you went to step forward and say, I want to bring these charges, you were told you'd run out of time.
Yes. Many survivors will tell you that sometimes it can take a lifetime. In my case, it took me 7 years to even cry about my experiences because I did what a lot of people tell you to do. Just move on, just get over it, just be strong. What I didn't realize was I had been deeply hurt and I was in denial of that hurt.
Wood hasn't named her abuser and says she doesn't plan on it because this isn't about revenge. She says it's about giving the power back to survivors.
When you hear yourself say, I penned this law, how does that make you feel?
I'm proud. I'm saddened by the circumstances that brought me here. I wish that wasn't my story. I don't like that that's my story. But if my truth can move progress forward, I feel like now is the time to share that truth, even if it's ugly.
Was there a moment where you're like, no?
So you saw Marilyn Manson live twice in 2019 and he had gone downhill. It was mostly just breakdowns of him talking to high school girls who were throwing their underwear on stage. Oh, wow. That's horrible.
I'm going to change my story, or my story is going to be more full story.
Well, that's exactly why I named it the Phoenix Act. You might be in the ashes, but you can rise out of them. That moment for me happened when it became not about me anymore.
Wood hopes using her voice helps others.
So you're talking on one hand, as you say, about the law, changing the law.
That is cool that she's going as far as actually trying to enact change in the world instead of just, making it like a cause du jour kind of thing.
Actress Evan Rachel Wood, known for films like The Wrestler, The Ides of March, and many others, has previously been romantically linked to shock rocker Marilyn Manson. This video was widely circulated last year, showing Wood testifying in front of the California State Senate about an unnamed man she says abused her when they were in a relationship together. She didn't name the person in her testimony, though many believed it was Marilyn Manson she was referring to.
Sometimes he would not allow me to sleep until I participated in acts of fear, pain, torture, and humiliation. On one occasion, I returned to try and defuse the situation. He cornered me in our bedroom and asked me to kneel while he tied me up by my hands and feet. Once I was restrained, he beat me and shocked sensitive parts of my body with a torture device called a violet wand.
Jesus.
Then, in November of last year, Marilyn Manson participated in a phone interview with Metal Hammer, and he was asked about Evan Rachel Wood. He responded, "This is where I head out to the photo shoot because I talk about music. I'm not here to talk about rumors. I understand that you have to ask a question like that, but I don't want to talk about rumors as music, as I want to talk about music." Subsequently, earlier today, actress Evan Rachel Wood released a statement on her Instagram alleging that Manson had abused her. She wrote, "The name of my abuser is Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson. He started grooming me when I was a teenager."
Yeah, that's a weird thing to say. Or it's like, oh no, I'm just here to talk about the music. I don't want to talk about people who may be accusing me of very credible accusations of abuse.
She was 19 at the time and he was 38. They later became engaged in 2010, but broke up later in the year. Multiple other women also released statements about Marilyn Manson claiming abuse earlier today. Variety attempted to reach Marilyn Manson's representatives for comment, though they say they did not receive a response at this time. Manson hasn't commented on these claims, Though his PR team did release a statement to Metal Hammer after he ended the interview, writing in part, "Personal testimony is just that, and we think it's inappropriate to comment on that." You then go on to talk about Manson being accused of terrible things by unnamed critics, but offer no guidance on who these critics are and what these things are. So it's not possible to comment.
Hello, this is Tony with the latest rock news. Evan Rachel Wood accused Marilyn Manson of abuse and grooming on Monday, February 1st, after years of speculation regarding an unnamed victimizer the actress referenced in congressional testimony from 2018. Wood named the rock musician in a short statement on social media following much media scrutiny, presuming Manson as the abuser. At least 4 other women joined Wood, posting separate allegations against Manson, as Vanity Fair reported. "The name of my abuser is Brian Warner," Wood said on Instagram, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson. "He started grooming me when I was a teenager and horrifically abused me for years. I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. I am done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail. I am here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent." Those joining Wood in accusing Manson of abuse include Sarah McNeely, Ashley Lindsay Morgan, Ashley Walters.
I wanted to read some of their accusations. I was trying to find it. Hold on. So from Ashley Walters, "I continue to suffer PTSD and struggle with depression. I stayed in touch and with quite a few people who went through their own traumas under his control. As we all struggled as survivors do to get on with our lives, I'd keep hearing stories disturbingly similar about our own experiences. It became clear the abuse he's caused, he continues to inflict on so many, and I cannot stand by and let this happen to others. Brian Warner needs to be held accountable." From Sarah McKinley, "I have been afraid to bring any spotlight upon myself as to avoid winding up in the crosshairs again as a result of the way he treated me. I suffer from mental health issues and PTSD, and it's affected my personal and professional relationships, self-worth, and personal goals. I believe he gets off ruining people's lives. I stand in support of all who have come forward. I want to see Brian held accountable for his evil." Ashley Lindsay Morgan, "I have night terrors, PTSD, anxiety, and mostly crippling OCD. I try to watch constantly to get him off of me. I'm coming forward, so I will finally stop." Gabriella, "It has taken me 5 years to speak out and say that I was in an abusive relationship. I've been diagnosed with PTSD, and I still suffer from nightmares. I block out a lot of the memories, but the feelings remain and manifest in various ways. The reason I'm finally sharing this traumatic experience is for my healing and because I'm done being silent. I don't believe it's fair for someone not to be held accountable for their horrific actions. I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor." In addition to the career as a musician, Manson has also worked regularly as an actor, and he's appeared in a number of films. Yeah, Sons of Anarchy, American Gods. In 2019 interview, Wood said, "I used to think being strong was not being affected. And now to me, being strong is letting it affect you and being able to move past it, seeing the pain, walking through it, letting it flow through you, and then letting it leave. You can break and still be strong." Agreed.
As of this posting, Manson and his team have yet to offer comment on the allegations bearing his name. For more on this story, head over to loudwire.com.
Okay, wait, what? In his book, there's a moment where he talks about... Wait, Loudwire, give us a second here. In his book, there's a moment where he talks about where he had sex with a deaf woman. According to her, he would urinate on her and say really hateful things about disability. The urination is the kink, so I'll ignore that, but the shit he said about her being deaf was sick. Actual hate and bigotry, and in the end, that's what mattered to me. Not the kinks or any of the disgusting things we heard. I stopped liking him because his view on disabled people. Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that at all. Gotta Google that. I wonder if that's well known. This is the rabbit hole I didn't see myself going. That time, Marilyn Manson and his band covered a deaf woman groupie with meat and peed on her. Story time. Once upon a time around the year of 1993, Marilyn Manson and his band took a brief break from recording sessions in South Beach studios to grab something to eat and ended up covering a deaf girl with meat and peeing on her. The gal's name is Adina Slotsky, born in 1975, also known as Alyssa, and the moment she entered the studio in which the band, members of 9 Inch Nails and producer Sean Beverin were hanging out, things escalated quickly. As the story goes, keyboardist Stephen Beer and Madonna Wayne Gacy had a fetish of doing things to a deaf girl, which quickly prompted Manson to ask Adina to take her clothes off. Well, okay, first off, this is like a guitar forum. I'm not going to use this as a source. According to the official Manson wiki, she's been on Howard Stern. Adina Slotsky is an American artist and photographer, as well as the self-proclaimed dominatrix. Her encounters with Marilyn Manson are documented on Manson's autobiography, The Long Road Out of Hell, and the unauthorized documentary, Demystifying the Devil. In A Long Road to Hell, a transcript of the interview held where Manson describes Slotsky comprises the Meeting of Fans meet and greet chapter, where she's referred to as Alyssa. When Slotsky was 17 years old, she met the band backstage at the +5 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in 1993. Manson explains, I immediately realized that she was deaf because of the way her voice sounded. She told me that she could feel the music when she's close to the stage, and that's how she gets enjoyment from it. Manson goes on to assert that Slotsky apparently wanted to have sex with him, but because of his girlfriend, Melissa Romero, was also at the club, he was not interested in the advance. In Demystifying the Devil, however, Slotsky gives a different account to the media, explaining that after the club manager approached her about visiting the band backstage, Brian comes up and he grabs my boob. I'm like, fuck you. Quite a different story. The exact date of Slotsky's second encounter with the band is unclear. Citing Manson's autobiography, the meeting can be traced back to the summer of 1994, when the band spent some time in Miami, Florida, recovering on the cover of Two-Way Armies and Down the Park. However, citing Slotsky's 1999 appearance on Howard Stern and her 2000 appearance in Demystifying the Devil, the meeting can be traced to a time when she was around 17 years old, and Marilyn Manson was recording their major label debut, Portrait of the American Family. 17, eh? Which occurred in 1993. While both statements state the incident took place in South Beach, in reality, no material in Portrait was recorded in this area of Miami, which would somewhat lean the date in Manson's favor if the countdown took place at the time as 19. When Manson's left the band outpost in South Beach Studios to get something to eat, he ran to Slotsky, as resident of South Beach at the time, who invited back to the studio to meet the band. Trent Reznor, I'm really sad to hear that Trent Reznor is involved in the story, among others. Manson muses that it was ironic because just that day, Pogo was saying that one of his fantasies was to have sex with a deaf girl because he could say whatever he wanted without upsetting her or feeling embarrassed. Ah, there it is. Manson confesses that, to break the ice, I usually say whatever is on my mind, which in this case led him to ask Slotsky to take off her clothes. She complied, stripping down to her boots, leaving the group both shocked and amazed to command this much sexual power. The band proceeded to cover Slotsky in a variety of uncooked meats that they collected earlier in the day, which Manson describes as 1.5 hour of pure meat cavorting. The group documented the experience with sketches, photographs, and videotape. Whatever way they could capture this great moment in art history. No, this is assault. According to The Long Road Out of Hell, Manson tried escalating the situation, asking bassist Twiggy and Stephen Beer, better known as the former Marilyn Manson keyboardist Madonna Wayne Gacy, to scotch tape their penises together to see if Slotsky could put them both in her mouth. In the midst of this, and the cameras and street musicians and sketch artists in the room, the group allegedly decided that Beer would live his fantasy of having sex with a deaf girl. Manson notes that he did not feel Slotsky was being exploited by this, as if it was something that she was very excited to be a part of, and everyone in the group besides Nine Inch Nails were having a good time watching the experience. Although one of the things Beer shouted while reportedly having sex with Slotsky seemed to echo through the room as maybe one of the darkest things we had ever heard. Afterwards, Slotsky wanted to take a shower to wash off the meat slime and assorted body fluids. In light of this, Manson reports asking if he and Twiggy could urinate on her, which he purportedly condoned, granted that they kept away from her eyes and boots. During this, however, Twiggy did not aim properly and splashed it in her face. Manson explains that was when everyone else in the room would completely shut down and realize things had gone too far. That's when you realize things had gone too far. That's when, like, oh, okay, I think we've crossed the line here, everyone. Was this not a gentleman's affair? I believe this was a gentleman's affair up until right now. This is the moment, okay? I believe the bar has been set, and this is beyond the pale, gentlemen. While Slotsky was left to shower, then guitarist Daisy Berkowitz returned to the studio. The group did not inform him of what had happened shortly before, but then directly asked him to join Slotsky in the shower. Manson recalls the water hadn't really rinsed off her yet, and he was starting to make out with her where the urine had been on her lips. If he knew that she was covered in urine, he probably wouldn't have cared anyway. During the interview segments of Demystifying the Devil, where she accompanied by a gimp, Slotsky confirms meeting Manson in both Fort Lauderdale and in Miami. However, after explaining how the band was covered her in meat, her story deviates from Manson's account. Instead, Slotsky explains that she was hesitant over Manson's proposal to have sex, but regardless, he couldn't get an erection because of all the other people in the room. It is unclear if she was referring to Marilyn Manson or Stephen Beer here, and she acknowledges the autobiography statement, and he started to fuck her from behind, which refers to Beer, and thus far in the interview, she doesn't give mention by name of anyone besides Manson. In Slotsky's account, Manson did not propose that he and Twiggy urinate on her. Rather, Twiggy used a toilet before aiming his urine at Slotsky. In retaliation, Slotsky reportedly urinated on a roll of toilet paper and threw it at someone holding a camera, possibly Jonathan Ratch, who Manson mentions in the autobiography was frequenting the studio as Nine Inch Nails video documentarian at the time. Reznor was preparing for a home video closure. When Putesky joined her in the shower, he did not advance on her, but rather he proceeded to complain about his bandmates. At that point in the story, the two things do not deviate between Manson and Slotsky's account. Wow, that's super fucked up.
Flyers, they were very creative with themselves. I know of one show I wasn't there for, but I heard it was some sort of New Year's show where instead of, say, the champagne toast or the ball drop, they had a piñata filled with chicken guts that they released upon the crowd.
At times he would throw like he would go to a butcher shop and get like hearts and gizzards and things, throw them out in the crowd, and people didn't know what they were. They thought that they were some kind of party favor or something, until it hit them in the face, or they actually grabbed it and they found out that it was blood and gore.
These one-act plays of gore and goth began to attract...
Yeah, I guess I'll add a content warning. Should have done that a long-ass time ago. Should have known the story was going to take all kinds of weird turns. This is a rabbit hole I did not know existed. I feel like with the original Me Too movement, the entire music industry got a pass. It really feels that way, because I remember when like story was coming out after story about actor, I was like, well, yeah, but like most of my heroes, I found out at one point or another, fucking suck. Like David Bowie, one of my favorite artists of all time. I grew up with his music. My mom would play his music as a little kid. Like, I loved that shit. And then when you find out that David Bowie had slept with a 13-year-old, you're like, oh, that sucks. And then you're like, well, at least I have Zeppelin, because Zeppelin's fucking amazing. I mean, Zeppelin 1, Zeppelin 2, such classic albums. I would memorize air guitar riffs to that kind of stuff. Turns out that Jimmy Page had locked the same 13-year-old in a hotel room and also had sex with her. So there's that. There's that as well, and then as you go along the ladder, you're like, well, at least the Beatles, the most wholesome music of all time, and then it's like, well, you know, some of the Beatles were actually huge pieces of shit, and all my heroes just suck. Yeah, Ringo did nothing wrong. That's true.
Several major record labels, and eventually the attention of Nine Inch Nails frontman Trent Reznor. And in 1993...
This one's new to me. I didn't know Nine Inch Nails was involved in this. And Trent Reznor, are you just doing terrible shit? Man, I love Nine Inch Nails.
The break came when, having dropped the Spooky Kids moniker, Marilyn Manson was signed to Reznor's Nothing Records, a new division of Interscope.
I was part of their record release party here.
Okay, sorry, what? Did David Bowie say he supports fascism and call Hitler a rock star? In the years after Bowie's death, social media posts highlighted the public statements from the 1970s. Correct. Oh. Okay. Well, I mean, he was on a lot of cocaine, like all of the cocaine. Like, I think at one point the world's cocaine supply was directly going to David Bowie. I mean, if you've seen some TV interviews with David Bowie, he is coked out of his mind. But that doesn't excuse the fact that that's a really fucked up thing to say. It's true.
A couple of years ago at the Ambassador Club, the Impotent Sea Snake show, Brian was in the crowd. He tried to get into the act on the show, and he ended up on the stage, which they invite people on the stage. It's a known thing. But there was a
I'm talking about that later.
That the clown had, which he's no longer with the band. Brian ended up in the carriage with his ass up in the air, and they got...
Is Freddie Mercury still wholesome? Freddie Mercury was never wholesome. I mean, to my knowledge, Freddie Mercury doesn't have any stories nearly this fucked up, but Freddie Mercury definitely did some fucked up stuff. He did some amazing things too. Apparently, one of the reasons Sacha Baron Cohen refused to play Freddie Mercury in the movie was because he thought they were gonna like completely whitewash the story, and he was right. He was totally right. Freddie also supported some fast shit. Oh fuck. Okay, Groupie. Is this just going to get darker and darker? Groupie is a partially lost 1996 short film created by Rockstar Marilyn Manson. Sometimes in 96, Marilyn Manson held a house party which he intended to make a short film out of. He informed the guests that a woman would be arriving and that he would be filming her. Groupie begins with a shot of Manson sucking... Oh, God. Okay, here we go. Oh, God. Am I going to be... I don't even know. Is this going to cross through to TOS? I'm definitely not playing this. It sounds like softcore porn that Manson made about him sleeping with groupies in a video. He makes the guests do increasingly perverse things, from drinking urine, which they do, to convincing Manson to also drink it. The rest of the details relatively unknown. She's tied up at one point, and then suddenly bloodshed. The guests at the party are made uncomfortable by the incident, as if they didn't know it had genuinely happened or had previously been planned. Oh man, this is super messed up. I'm back to ABBA. Yeah, definitely not doing Marilyn, or not watching or listening to Marilyn Manson anymore.
Marilyn Manson abruptly ends an interview with Metal Hammer after they ask about allegations reportedly made against him by actress Evan Rachel Wood. Now, if you aren't familiar with those allegations, here's a little bit of what she said in front of the California Senate, speaking as an advocate for the Phoenix Act.
When I was a teenager, I met a man. I looked up to him in many ways and felt like we had a special bond, and I had no intention of it turning into something romantic. When it eventually did, I wasn't sure how to stop it, as he had a certain charisma and power, and I quickly surrendered to his charms. In the beginning, he treated me like a princess. I was smart, but a smart 18-year-old is still an 18-year-old, and I thought I had fell in love. It wasn't until much later that I realized everything he had told me was a lie and part of what is called the grooming process. He'd hidden a terrible drug and alcohol problem from me. He moved very fast in the relationship, asking me to move in with him almost immediately. There was a certain way he wanted me to look, otherwise I would endure name-calling and ridicule. He cut me off from my close friends and family one by one by exhibiting rage in some form or another when I was in contact with them. The only way I knew how to calm him was to give him what he wanted, which was me all to himself in total isolation. He had bouts of extreme jealousy, which would often result in him wrecking our home, cornering me in a room, and threatening me. I witnessed my abuser threatening people with force or legal action if he worried they would expose him. He bragged about being able to have people killed because he was allegedly friends with multiple gangs, and I watched him illegally collect data on people that he could use as blackmail. By the time I realized I was in a bad situation, I felt completely trapped and terrified for my life. He gifted me a cell phone, which I found out he was monitoring. He downloaded spyware onto my computer and hacked into my emails and social media accounts so I could not reach out for help. When my friends and family tried to intervene, I swiftly told them to leave because I was afraid of what he would do.
It's worth noting that Evan Rachel Wood does not specifically name Marilyn Manson in those allegations, though she was in a relationship with him when she was 18 years old. So here it is. Metal Hammer spoke to Marilyn Manson for their new edition, which is available now for pre-order, and they say it didn't go well, and it's published in their next issue. The agenda was, as you might expect.
This, by the way, what's astounding is it's sounding more and more like cult-like almost, and it's really sad to find out so many times that like these huge artists, whether it be like Marilyn Manson, you know, R. Kelly was doing the same thing as well, they seem to have this kind of strange, abusive, cult-like personality where they, I guess, think of themselves as gods because they become musical gods on Earth.
A bit of context, Marilyn Manson has built a career from treading the lines between the acceptable and the obscene. He relished his image as America's premier boogeyman as his fame peaked in the late 90s, goading concerned conservatives in America.
Yes,
with
they seem to be very into urine, but that's their thing, all right? I'm not going to kink shame that. That's fine. If you want to be into pee, be into pee. That's your business. But most of that stuff, I mean, if she was 17, first off, that's illegal. That's pedophilia. It seems to be an incredibly abusive situation. It's exerting a whole bunch of power. There's an unbelievable power dynamic there. Like I like the idea that the person in that scenario where they're covering her in raw meat and stuff like that they're like, well, yeah, but she said she was totally fine with it. I was like, well, it sounds like she was in a room full of rock stars, an underage, like if she's 17, it's an underage girl, it's not an underage woman, but an underage girl is in a room full of rock stars, and they're like, yeah, so now we're going to cover you in raw meat and you're going to drink our urine. Like, I don't think that she's in a position to suddenly be like, yes, I'm completely fine, I consent to this activity that's about to take place. If she's underage, she can't consent at all. Like, there's no such thing. And if she was 18, that's like the best case scenario in this story is that she was actually 18 at the time, and even then there's an enormous power dynamic at play.
Promise that he was going to upend a polite society and enjoy every second.
No, I'm not talking about Evan Rachel Wood right now. I'm talking about the story that we just heard that came from the dominatrix, the one that we've been talking about. I'm not mixing up the two stories. So I guess this just came out. Manson hasn't commented on it yet. I mean, it looks really, really bad. You've got 4 different women coming forward, all of them giving very similar testimonies about how Marilyn Manson was physically abusive to them. And now a very, very high profile actress, Evan Rachel Wood, coming forward. I mean, it sounds almost like he is the character that he plays. If you want us to advertise your channel or work, please go to weareserfs.com and email us a 20 to 30 second ad, and we'll take it on to the end of one of our videos to help promote your leftist channel or progressive something. Whatever you do.
To our gods, I'm Raph, Xander Corvus, and Schlatsky. We shall build golden idols in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, you have our undying fealty. To our lords, Jeffrey Lamb, Trevor R., Hans Josephin, C. Bartlett, Jimothy K. Meeple Beeps Jr., Bisexual Black Gamer, and Trofox, we shall carry your banners onto the battlefield. To our Knights of the Round Table, Josh Mickelson, Dylan Byte, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Political Puppy, Jimmy Bignuts, Andreas Chitoro, Good Poon Hates Cops, That's Solid Poon Then, Dr. Zayas, Yoppie, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Thomas Barrington, J. Fraser Cartwright, Goofalankius, Melissa Murphy, Nicholas Marks, Alexander Thaler, Ali Rada Jafer, Alex Gauvin, Radical Maniac, The Great Pudini, and Callie Kotka. We salute you.